Hey everybody, it's Shadowstar here, and I'm going to be doing something a little different today with Arrow. I'm going to be going over my top 5 episodes for Season 1. Now, Arrow Season 1, it's got a bit of hit and misses, but there's no denying that when it does good episodes, it does really good episodes. So, let's just start things off with the 5th best episode of the season, Year's End. It's the first mid-season finale and the first Christmas episode, and it was nice to have an interesting episode where it was nice to finally have an episode where, on one hand, we've got festive stuff. On the other hand, we go full force, where we're finally introduced to the Dark Archer. The main plot for the season really starts to kick off this episode. We really get somebody who can actually take down Oliver for once. It's also the first time Quentin works with the Arrow, the Vigilante, whatever. So, all in all, it was a really good episode. There were a few bits that were a little awkward or quiet, but there was so much action and there was so much plot reveal that it's such a good episode. It definitely deserves its spot in the top 5. Moving on to the 4th best episode, it's episode 5. Damaged. It's the episode where Oliver is suspected of being the Green Arrow, or the Arrow, the Vigilante, whatever we're calling him. And honestly, I'm glad we got this out of the way quick and simple, because it's good to get it out of the way. Because let's face it, eventually you've got to have that situation where somebody puts 2 and 2 together. So we get that, and that means for a while no one's going to suspect Oliver. But this episode just has so much good things about it. It's one of the best. It's the beginning of some of the really good stuff with the flashback. We have Oliver learning how to use a bow from Yao Fei, which is already a good scene. I don't know why, I really enjoy training scenes. Only when they're done right. If it's done too much, it gets boring. But it's also it's also a scene where Oliver first endures torture, which ties in with the interrogation scene, which honestly, Oliver, there are times where he can't lie, but then there are times where he can lie so brilliantly. It really just shows a full scale of Oliver's double persona, and honestly, I was just loving this episode because I love court scenes, I love interrogation scenes, I love this episode. Let's move on to the 3rd best episode. Man, I loved this episode when I rewatched it, and honestly, at first, when I first saw it, I thought it would be higher on the list, but the next 2 episodes are better. But this is the 3rd best episode of the season, The Odyssey. It's the first time we have an episode pretty much devoted entirely to flashbacks. But even outside the flashbacks, there's a lot of good stuff. Felicity joins a team, and Moira is interrogated. And with Felicity joining the team and what happens in the flashbacks, I say this is a turning point for where Season 1 really gets good, and for what will set the pavement for what Season 2 should be. But going into the flashbacks, we once again have a training scene. It is the famous training scene of Slade training Oliver. The famous words where he says, "Jam this gun in my face." And that line comes back way later in one of my favorite episodes. And honestly, just seeing Oliver and Slade team up for the first time properly, it's just such a good episode. How can you not love this? It really makes you really enjoy the flashbacks, appreciate the flashbacks, and want to keep watching the show. It finally delves into every bit of the plot we've been waiting for. Moving on to the 2nd best episode and the 2nd last episode of the season, it's Darkness on the Edge of Town. Bit of an odd name, but my god, this episode was so jam-packed. First we have the hacking heist scene, as I'll call it, where they have to break into Merlin Industries, I just love heist scenes. I love when they're all out in the field like that. You know, even though, yes, Felicity should stay behind the desk, it's nice to occasionally get them out in the scene and see them all working together, because they have to all think on their feet. But then, oh man, the flashbacks are so dramatic. I believe this is the flashback where Yao Fei dies, and we start to finally learn what Fire's plan is. And then, I mean, we've pretty much learned everything about the undertaking, and we finally just go full force. Oliver confronts Malcolm. They both know who each other is. Oliver learns he's a Dark Archer. Malcolm learns he's the Arrow. And that's it. It ends on an amazing cliffhanger. It's the second last episode. It's meant to build you up to the finale, and it does it so well. Now, the best episode of the season, it's a season finale. I mean, what can you say? Season finales are often the best of the season, especially with Arrow. I'll always say that Arrow does amazing season finales. But, oh man, this episode was so jam-packed, there was never a dull moment. We got confrontation scenes between Tommy and Oliver, which aren't boring or bad. We get scenes with Tommy confronting Malcolm, that dramatic scene where Malcolm just says they deserve to die and then plays a recording of Rebecca dying for Tommy. There's Moira's press conference scene where she's arrested. There's the final fight scene, which could have been slightly better, but still a great scene and really cements Malcolm Merlyn as a villain. I love good speeches. I love a finale with a speech. Felicity gets a good speech to Quentin, who in then turn, Quentin gets a good speech where he puts the safety of others above his job. And then, man, what an ending. What an ending. The dramatic, tear-jerking scene with Tommy dying. Love or hate Tommy, you can't deny. That was an emotional scene. And the closeout. It just closes out on death, leaving you wanting to see more. A finale that keeps you going. It's action-packed. It wants you seeing Season 2. And Season 2 is so good. But this is such a good episode of Season 1. Season 1, like I said, has a bit of here and there. But these 5 episodes, as I've said, are some of the best episodes of Season 1. And some of them are just the best episodes of Arrow. So, if you enjoyed my episodes, I've been Shadowstar. I'll see you next time. Like, comment, and subscribe, and eventually I'll do more of these for Season 2. Join me later for Season 2.